I cannot wait for you to meet our next guest on the Real Estate Pessimist podcast. Steph Lombardo unpacks so much. Everything from how she got inspired to get into real estate by seeing somebody shovel horse manure, to scaling up, to scaling down, to knowing the difference from when you should push forward and like, I'm going to do this, and when it's actually smarter to say, I'm going to walk away right here, right now. Please join Christy Candle and me on the Real Estate Pessimist podcast as we interview our next guest, Stephanie Lombardo. Can't wait for you to join us. Welcome to the Real Estate Pessimist podcast. My name is Eric Stenbakken, and I am one of your co-hosts. I've got a small portfolio in long-term rentals and specialize in short-term rentals. Wrote the program STR in an hour. If you want to find out what that's about from A to Z in 59 minutes, you can see the show notes. The Real Estate Pessimist is not about being pessimistic. We got to debunk that right up front. We are the pickle. What that means is that we are the antidote to the overly sweet, overly hyped podcasts and material that you see and listen to on social media. We want to talk about the reality that happens if you are a real estate investor. That's what we're here to talk about, and I cannot wait for you to meet our guest, who I'm going to let Christy introduce. But Christy, how's things going?
Hey, Eric. Things are going well. It's a little rainy down here in Florida, but it works. So a little background on me. I'm a real estate developer and investor. And about a year and a half ago, I started teaching locals how to become developers in their own backyard. And today we are doing the Pessimist podcast, where we share the real life stories of real investors doing the thing. And I'm very excited to introduce today's guest, because I met Stephanie back in 2020 when we joined a different real estate mastermind. And we immediately went, you're my people. Shortly after that, COVID happened, and I started traveling the country, and I even got the chance to stop in and see her in person when we got to South Carolina. So very excited to introduce Stephanie today. She is a badass, and she has such a wide range of experiences, and it's just been a pleasure to just talk to her and share our wins, share our struggles over the years, and really just watch each other's businesses grow and thrive. So Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm looking forward to talking about the pickle and real estate investing with you guys today.
Yes. So just a note for our listeners, we're going to have a bit of a language barrier today. Steph is Canadian, so we're going to have to run this through the Google Translator here, real time. It'll sound like English from all of us, but Steph, how did you get to where you are? I don't think you were just born and raised there in the Carolinas. How'd you get here?
Yeah, so I was born in just outside of Toronto and spent my whole life in Canada, and my whole family's still there. And when I grew up riding horses. When I was about 7, I found horses, and that was it for me. And I rode horses all into my 20s. So when I was 21, I guess, I just wanted to leave. I don't know why. Like I still to this day, I don't know why, but I wanted to go somewhere different. I actually wanted to go over to Europe and ride. And a friend of mine said, you could go work for this Canadian lady down in Aiken, South Carolina, and for the winter. So I was like, all right, let's go. And I fell in love with the town. It's a very beautiful, it's a huge horse town, small community, but big horse town. I thought I was gonna like be in bikinis and like hot sun weather in January, which was not true. But yeah, and so I just fell in love with it, and I made a decision like that's where I was going to be, and sort of stayed there. So did the horse thing in Aiken for a few years, ended up moving back to Canada for a couple of years, and then came back to Aiken, still to horses, and then transitioned to real estate.
Yeah, so what did you do in real estate? I mean, I used to think horses were kind of like, please, horses. And then I was doing an assignment for Central Wyoming College, a community school. And they said, well, we're going to take you over here, and we're going to something about pictures. They had an indoor arena. And they said something about our rodeo management program. I'm like, what? Like, that's a major? Like horses? Like, what's up with that? And the person who was giving me the tour, because I used to be a commercial photographer, said to me, hey, did you know that Americans spend more money on horses than all of NASCAR franchise combined? I thought, there's a lot about this world I don't know.
I believe that for sure. There's a lot of money in horses. And Aiken was sort of founded as like a winter colony originally. And so a lot of the wealthy people from up north would come down and winter in Aiken. So there's a lot of horses, tennis, golf, and that. So yeah, a lot of money in it. And even when I started working, it was 2008. And so I was completely oblivious to what was happening in the rest of the world because I had all of these horse people who were just, investing a lot of money. I shouldn't say investing, spending a lot of money on, on their horses. Um, but yeah, I did the horse thing. I just realized it. I started to have a back injury and I realized, I wasn't going to make it. I wasn't good enough to be a professional. And there were there were two moments in my life, I think that were like sort of a big catalyst of mindset for me. And one was this old lady shoveling horse shit. And, she was like, should have been retired. She didn't have any money. And she was like working like below minimum wage just to make ends meet. And I was like, I am not going to be that person. And I went back to school. I still didn't know real estate. I went back to school up in Canada, studied accounting. I would have been a terrible accountant, but good, like, learn all the basics of business and that. And when I moved back to Aiken, I got a bookkeeping job for a construction company, real estate investor. And that was sort of my introduction to real estate. And it was just fascinating to me. I think the things I liked were that it was super fast paced. But what we were doing, we were buying packages of foreclosure. So it was very fast paced. I saw the potential in the numbers and, just like there's houses everywhere. And so the opportunity like that was there was super exciting to me. I didn't know what I was going to do. But I just, they gave me a task and I just went all in, figured it out and sort of moved from there. So my dad grew up talking about if I wanted to really be wealthy to own real estate, that was the path. He didn't own real estate, he never bought any, but that was the path to wealth. And so I guess I always hung on to that. And
why do you think if he didn't own that he knew? Did he do the education and just not take the action steps, or why do you think he gave that?
I think he listened to, probably still does, I think he listened to a lot of and I don't know anybody specific, but I remember him listening to a lot of tapes, motivational tapes, wealthy people. And so, what is it? 99% of millionaires are cheated through real estate or whatever. And so I think he knew that was a path. He had heard that was a path. He just could never get out of I think it was a bit of a mindset. And it was like the time, like I couldn't get out of the grind to do that thing. I didn't have enough money to do that thing, which we hear all the time of people who are trying to get started, right? Like, oh, I need to have this first. And so I think he had that, but he knew that was the destination. I think he just couldn't figure out how to get there.
So how did you go into that? I mean, you were working around it and you saw this happen, but what was the catalyst where you said, wait a minute, if they could do that, I could do that. And you launched off to start your own. And what did you start?
Yeah, so I was working with that small team, again, buying packages of foreclosures, and I caught on very quickly. I moved up quickly, so just increased responsibility. And one of the partners, worked with me locally to start flipping myself. So, and they kind of taught me, like they were using other people's money we were using other people's money to buy packages of these foreclosures. I was listening to podcasts, right? Like a lot of bigger pocket stuff, and just heard other people say, like, I started with nothing. And I got to hear and I was like, okay, well, if they can do it, like, why can't I do it? And just kind of went down that path. I was fortunate, like I fell into real estate. Like I didn't make a decision to get into it. I sort of fell into it, but I just like really leaned in. I knew that was going to be a path for me. I knew that if other people had started from nothing with no money that, I could do it too, and went down the path of flipping. And so I think I've always had a flip. I don't know if there's ever been a period in the last 10 years that I haven't had a flip going. And so I've been flipping, which I don't know, like there was a period of time too where I was like, I'm not doing this again. Like this is it for me. And I don't know, it's a bit addicting. I'm not sure why.
It is.
Glutton for punishment, I guess. Yeah. And so I've been flipping ever since. We built a portfolio of rentals. Flipping is very much an active income. It's active income, right? So we built a portfolio as well. And I just haven't let go of it.
So just take a minute and talk about the difference between that active income and work in real estate and investing in real estate, and why you've chosen to do a little of both.
Yeah. So I think when I started, and flipping is I consider it investing in real estate, but it again is very much active income. And so I think when I started, and you see some of the profit numbers, even small, right? Like 25K a project, 40, 50K. And you're thinking, me at the time, I was like, man, like that's a lot of money. Well, you did one to flip a year. it's not that much money, right? Like spread over time. Um, I've realized that every project I bought, I was just buying myself a job, and it still is, right? Like whether you're just doing one flip at a time or starting to build a business, right? You're kind of buying yourself a job, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at some point, I recognize like we need to have we just need to build wealth. Like my husband and I were both self-employed, and however we're going to get out of there, I found the Burr book and follow the Burr strategy, which is you're basically just it's flipping. You're just flipping it into a rental. You're flipping for wealth instead of flipping for profit. And I was like, okay, well, I can do that. And just decided to do both at the same time so that we had a future, like for our family, for our daughter, and not counting on that to be like, you're not going to get rich overnight with a long-term rental property, right? So we structured our lives so that we could build a portfolio and not touch it while we were doing the active thing.
Hey, can we talk business for a second? If you've been flipping houses or running short-term rentals, you already know how to hustle. You know how to spot opportunity, add value, and make a property work harder. But if we're being honest, flipping gets exhausting, and short-term rentals are definitely not passive. So what's next? For a lot of people I work with, the answer is real estate development. I'm talking about turning a vacant lot into a quadplex, or bringing a rundown building back to life as a mixed-use space. I'm Christy Candle, and I've been a real estate developer my entire career. And now I host the Local Real Estate Developer podcast to help locals like you do the same. We pull back the curtain and show you what it takes to go from flipper or host to local developer. If you're ready to build something bigger, this podcast is for you. Check out the Local Real Estate Developer podcast on all platforms.
When I started my coaching program with Flipping Empire, that was the thing. Like, if you're going to build your empire, we're going to flip for profit. We're going to teach you how to do that first. Also flip for wealth. And ideally, you're kind of going both paths until, you get to where you need to be.
Very interesting. So we always like to tell the truth. See, our tagline for the Real Estate Pessimist podcast is the good, the bad, and the truth about real estate investing. Now, we have all heard the podcast where it's like, oh, I bought this house for $100,000 and I flipped it and sold it for $1.6 million. And I only put in $50,000 of my own money. Okay, I exaggerate, but only a little bit, right? We hear these stories of how everything is just like, wow, that's awesome. That's incredible. Like you worked on it for 6 weeks and you put on some paint and LVP and you just sold it on the MLS for over ask. And it's, wow, that's so easy. And you see these guys on YouTube with the checks. It's like, oh, look at this check. I got a $150,000 check. And you don't realize they're just about to turn that around and get about $2,000 for having flipped that. That's the part they get to keep. You've got a story about how you got into a flip. Now, they've got to be successful to some degree or you wouldn't keep doing it. Either that or you've got a super rich uncle who just keeps giving you money to lose. I don't think that's the case. But you keep doing it because it works. Somehow it works. And we want to talk about how it works, but you've got a story in Atlanta that went through some various phases before it ended up, let's just say, exiting. I'm not sure what word I want to use. But take us through that in phases, kind of what happened. First of all, let's just go into first phase one. What happened? What was the deal? What did you see the potential? How did you get there?
Yeah, I'm curious because you said Aiken, South Carolina. So now you have Atlanta. How did you figure out that market?
So, I think this is a big story I come back to in my life. Like, there's a lot of lessons I think in this one instance that I go back to frequently. So I was in Aiken and we were already starting to look into a couple of different markets. I had felt that it wasn't a big enough town for me to do what I wanted to do, which is false. And I think a lot of people think that as well when they're getting started, that they need to go to a big city. There's not enough inventory. You hear that all the time. There's enough inventory in your town to get started for sure and to make a decent living. So I decided to go to a bigger city, bit of shiny object, didn't have the market expertise, and found this deal. I found it through a wholesaler, some wholesaler there, did my analysis, right? Ran the numbers, but we were still we were sort of pioneering the street. So we were on the path, like it was on the path of progress, right? We just weren't there yet. And so you were looking at the shiny object, the high-end ARVs of the other projects and properties that were in the area. And I decided to move forward with this. We put down a non-refundable, like $5,000 non-refundable earnest money. And yeah, we're going to flip this deal. It was awesome, right? Like it was the big payday, and we got there. I had a partner at the time, and we got there a few days before closing, something like that, to check out the property. We were bought it sight unseen, non-refundable earnest money sight unseen, which I would never do again. And the scope of work was way more than we had anticipated. And instead of walking away from the 5K, which I would do now 100%, and I tell people in my program all the time, like, just walk away from it. If there's a big red flag that comes up, if you got non-refundable earnest money down on it, just walk away from it. Because if we had walked away from the 5K, it would have hurt a lot less. And we're like, no, we've got the money down on it. Here's how we're going to set this right. And we just completely changed our plan.
And then what type of, was this a ranch style property? Was it two-story? Maybe describe that a little bit.
Sure. So it was a one story. I think it had a basement, like kind of a half walkout basement. It was near the end of a street. And again, like the top end of the street was being revitalized, and the bottom end wasn't quite there yet. So it was one story, and I think I think it was termites. I think it could have been a combination of termite, water, but the whole structure of the house it was just destroyed, and it needed to be torn down, basically.
And when you guys put the offer in sight unseen, what were you expecting to find? Like, what did you think? Okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we're underwriting it for.
And to be clear here, this wasn't your first flip, was it? I mean, how far into this journey was this? So you weren't ignorantly doing all of this. You had some expectations and so on. Kind of give us some scale of like Chrissy asked, what were you expecting, and what kind of experience did you base that on?
Yeah, so I think we were expecting to, and I don't want to say it wasn't a cosmetic rehab by any means. It was a pretty heavy facelift on that property. We weren't adding square footage. I think we were incorporating the basement square footage, and then doing the cosmetic needs. I guess I had already been in for sure 2 years. I've been in the real estate space seeing these flips. When I started, we were doing project management sight unseen on properties around the country. So we had experience with that. And that's what was my basis. Like, you don't have to physically be at the property, right? But you have to have the right systems and teams in place. And then my partner at the time had a lot of experience as well. And I mean, decades of experience in real estate too. I was one who found the property, had initiated that, but when we were standing at the house, it was like, okay, what do we do? And I remember the feeling in my gut of like, okay, just walk away. I said it out loud, let's just walk away. And we decided not to. We decided to push forward, and we decided we were going to tear the house down and rebuild new construction. And so it went from like a $65,000-$70,000 rehab to like a $250,000 new construction project. So yeah, and that could go on and on.
When you switched to new construction, did you decide, okay, well, now with this, the ARV is this, so the market is still there for that, so we're going to do that?
Yeah, and there again, we could have justified it, right? And I think we sort of started to romanticize the project. And I do find this can happen sometimes midway through a project where you think like, oh, like my shit smells super good compared to everything else, right? Let's push up the ARV, let's push up the project, but we hadn't even started yet. And we were like, okay, we're going to do this new construction. We can pull comps from these. Again, there were new construction down the street, but we were just sort of grasping to justify how we wanted to force this deal into something. Again, it was super early in we hadn't even started, we hadn't even closed on the thing yet. And so we should have just walked away, but we didn't. And often I do see that happens like midway through a project where you're like, wow, now I'm going to let's add this extra square footage, or let's increase our budget because I think that we can sell it for more, instead of going back to your initial plan, which is what we should have done. We should have gone to the initial underwriting, gone to the initial plan. Okay, it didn't fit that box anymore. And so at the time it was like, okay, let's walk away from the 5K. And instead we didn't. We just were romanticizing the deal, which I think it can still happen. Like, I have to catch myself on projects now. Like, what was the original plan? Like, where's an unbiased opinion of it? Like, who can I consult who's going to give me like the facts, and not
Yeah.
this ideal that we've created.
And I was just at a conference, and one of our big topics in our sidebar groups that we were talking about was you can't fall in love with the deal as much as we want to, and then we realize and we get passionate about it. And especially for me and development projects, those are a long lifespan, and what you start with is not what you finish. But it's one thing to say don't fall in love with the deal. It's another thing to not fall in love with the deal and to trust your gut and your spidey senses, it is not easy to do.
So let's talk about that a little bit. There's a lot of talk on a lot of programs about the technical stuff. It's like, well, here's how you analyze a property. Here's how you analyze the community. Here's how you calculate your ARV. Here's how you make your offer. What I hear you talking a lot about is like, yeah, there's the numbers. That's it. You should know that stuff. But you're starting to go into the mental, like, where do I want this to go? And I will this to be a better project than the reality of it goes. Take us through the mindset and emotions of what was happening as you started this project and then as you got into this project, because it doesn't sound like, oh yeah, we did reconstruction and we doubled our money. That was cake. Talk to us about the mental space you were in, both mindset and emotional, as this thing unfolded, and how did it unfold? I am co-host of this podcast because education is my calling. That's also why I developed a course on short-term rentals. It's called STR in an Hour, and it's perfect for busy professionals. It's a lot of content packed into 1 hour. No fluff, no upsell. It's an overview of STRs from A to Z. Everything from how to choose a property to how to estimate income and expenses. It's literally the best and most content I could pack into 59 minutes. With over 4,000 nightly stays in my own STRs, I've learned important lessons, and I want to share them with you. Link with more information in the show notes.
Yeah, so I think the mindset is, and it's a bit of what will get you somewhere, right? I think it's what you need to have a little bit of grit and grind and will to get things moving, right? To like take a project from nothing and like create it into something. But it's when you're just getting too emotional into it, and you're gonna like it's square peg round hole the whole time. And I think that's what it was like. And truthfully, I haven't gone back and thought through this project too much. I think I tucked it away, but I thought this was a good good channel to let it out. And I think that's how the whole project went. Like we didn't then have enough money. We were actually in breach of our loan because we weren't supposed to tear the asset down. We had to raise additional funds. I mean, it was just like one thing after another. Oh man, but it was the whole like just square peg round hole, and it was actually that whole time there was a lot of emotion that happened of contractors weren't doing what we wanted them to do, and so then it was like, how do you force this guy to get back on their job? And it's like you can't physically force somebody to show up to a job, to finish on the contract, and like, what are you going to do, right? So I think the whole thing, I have no better way to describe it than it was square peg round hole the whole time. And eventually, like, we had to negotiate with the bank and get out of it. They just took it back, sold it. That was it. And we had another project. So then not only did we not just try to solve this one, we bought another one around the corner, which again, it was like that gut instinct, that feeling in your gut of like, I think this is the right thing. And I wasn't strong enough to really stick to that at the time, to listen to that. And so we bought another one around the corner, and that one didn't end as badly, but it was a similar situation. It was like, square peg round hole for that one. And so I think it's like you need the grit to get going, but you need to also let go of your ego to say, okay, well, maybe I made a mistake. Like maybe this isn't the one for me, but know that there's more deals. Like, and I think that's where people feel, especially when you're starting. Like I work with a lot of new investors, and they're like, but this is the deal. Like I want it to work. And I'm like, I know you do, but there's more deals. And so whether it's like you walk away from it before you buy it, or halfway through you say, okay, I don't think this is going to go so well, like let's just keep rolling and move on. I think that's where you've got to shift your mindset. And I say this like tried to grit through things a lot for a long time. And I think now I have that, okay, there's more deals. And now I'm
Okay,
going to
so
solve this with volume. Yeah.
right, so there's
Sorry, I
two
think there's a
things here.
lot in there.
There is a lot in there, and there's two things I want to hit. One, I want to go back and say to close this up because it sounded like what happened on the deal. I want to find out exactly what happened there. Did you push it down? Did you do the rebuild? What happened with the bank? We went over that super quick, and it sounds like that didn't happen exactly like that. And then I want to come back to kind of the personality thing. But first, what actually happened? You put the earnest money down. You couldn't get it out. You decided you were going to go through with it, but you realized this is just not going to go to plan. This is just so not going to go to plan. What was the exit on that? How graceful or not was that?
Yeah, we obviously we closed on it, tore it down, renegotiated with we had a hard money lender and a private lender to buy it, renegotiated with our hard money lender. They released the funds because, again, we were in breach of our loan. They released the funds. We again went back to our private money lender and sort of explained the situation, gave them the new numbers. And again, we weren't, none of what we were doing was intentional to try to, we truly believed that our new plan was a better plan. And so we raised more money from the private lender to finish the new construction. And we put it up for sale. Probably started too high, to be honest. We probably, again, at that point, if we had said, let's list it at like break even and like get out of this thing, would have been the right choice. But we like pushed up the price, couldn't sell
You're like,
it.
I've invested all of this blood, sweat, and tears. Like, let's make a little bit of money off of this.
Yeah, my soul's in this house, and it just sat too long. We extended our hard money loan, and they took it back. So, yeah, we're essentially in default of the loan. The bank took it back. They sold it, did whatever with it, and that was it. So, we lost all of that. Had to make money back up to private lenders. Yeah. So that was the big wounds.
So I don't want to let that one go. What did you learn from this that you said, okay, let's make a note to self, not going to do this again? Enumerate a few of those for us technically. Some of the technical things like, I would do this instead of this. I would do this instead of this. I would ask this question. I would walk away at this point.
I would have definitely walked away from the deal and lost the 5K. Yeah, for sure. Even I was supposed to close on a deal this morning, and my GC went and looked at it, and the numbers didn't work. So we're like, we either need a lower price or, I'll forego the money or whatever. It doesn't matter, but we're not going to move forward. So that's a big lesson. I think a lesson for me was to trust my gut and to speak up for myself. Like I had a partner. So, again, I accept responsibility for my part, but there was, a partner and other influencers, right? So to trust my own gut and, other technical things. I think there were things that we did that out of ignorance I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do, like tear the house down. So I mean, I think there was so much, like there's stuff that went wrong with contractors, but that's the same on every deal. Like that's not a new story. But I think those are the biggest things. Like be okay with walking away from the deal. Don't change the plan. I think don't change the plan is like the biggest lesson, and really trusting your gut. And from there, I started to operate differently with how I handled contractors. Yeah, there's so many lessons. So
is there
I hope that answers that for
deal? Yeah, are there any lessons or things from that deal that haven't exponentially helped you in your career? Because that was early on. If you were 2 years into this, that was early on in your career. And while you took some L's, both just maybe ego-wise and financially, and different partnerships and learning, how much? I mean, I can only imagine this has exponentially helped you as you've grown your business and really focused in and honed in on your systems and processes and how you deal with it.
Yeah, for sure. So there was a lot of stuff that happened a couple of years after that just allowed me to build, like it took me a long time to build my confidence. It wasn't even at that point, right? So I think that was one thing. And I had to, because it was such a big financial lesson, I had no other choice but to keep pushing, right? Like, I think some people can you can do a flip or a project or whatever it is, and you can maybe not make out as well. Like maybe you made a couple grand or maybe you lost a little bit, but it maybe didn't sting enough for you to have to just keep pushing. And I had to just keep pushing. I had no other choice but to persevere and move forward. And that's what I knew how to do. Like that was the only vehicle that would have made enough money to keep moving forward. What was I going to do? Go and get a job at Starbucks? Sometimes I think maybe I should just go to Starbucks. I'd be horrible at that too. But, it was like I had to keep pushing. And so I think that was another lesson. Like you had no other choice but to like get out. And that essentially that built my confidence. I was able to use those lessons. But if you fail and you don't apply it somewhere, then you really have failed, right?
It's a wasted
Yeah.
education.
Right. Tuition.
Yeah.
And I still pay tuition. I have a business coach now, and I invested a bunch of money into something. And he was like, all right, well, there's your tuition. And I was like, I paid a lot of money to the School of Hard Knocks here, right? So tuition is okay, and you have to pay it.
So talk about that a little bit. You said you do coaching at this time, and you've done it in the past. You had a coaching business. We'll get to that here in a little bit. Talk about that dynamic of coaching, because there's a lot of chatter online about, oh, coaching, that's just a scam. These people want your money. And I mean, I have a little product that teaches people. Christy's got a product. You're a coach. And I think we could all raise our hand pretty fast to say, yeah, there are some people you shouldn't be sending your money to, because it's smoke. And maybe if you're lucky, mirrors, but you're not getting anything else. Where is the value in coaching? Do you seek coaching yourself? And how do you see the value of coaching in this space when is it worthwhile?
Yeah, 100% I believe in coaching. I think I grew up in athletics. Like I always had a riding coach. I always had sports coaches. Yeah. And I think people start a new sport and they're like, yeah, of course I'm going to hire a tennis instructor to learn a sport I know nothing about, and don't even blink at it. And then they want to start a new business, and they don't want to hire an instructor. But anyway.
No, I want you to unpack that. I want you to unpack that, because I hear it all the time. It's like, well, I'll go get a personal trainer, and I'll pay them X number of dollars to tell me what kind of protein thing to drink and exactly how to lift and position my arms. Like, no problem. I'll drop the money on that. That's okay. I'll go to a basketball camp. I'll take golf lessons. No problem whatsoever. But then you talk about paying someone else for information about building a business where you have hundreds of thousands of dollars at risk. And they're like, I'm not doing that. I do want you to unpack that. Why do you think people do that? And where is that a legitimate spend?
I think the difference is probably just the initial cost, right? Like if you've got a tennis lesson, maybe you're spending $20 or $40. It can also be a little bit more tangible, I suppose, like if you're using sports as an example, right? Like you physically have a lesson, whatever, you can feel it. And I think with business, I don't know why. And I got a business coach very early. Like I had a mentor when I started in real estate. And so while I wasn't paying him cash, he was taking profits in that, right? So if you were to look at that, I was paying for that. And then when I started to get serious about what I wanted to do as an entrepreneur, I had a business coach, because I had a path that I wanted to go down, and I wanted somebody who had already been there, who could help me get there faster. And I was willing to invest in that. And the people that I listened to who were successful and where I wanted to be all had coaches. Like they all have coaches. And so I just did it. And I've been investing in my coaching ever since. So to be personally coached. And I think you can have coaches for different things. Like I have a personal trainer that I go and see at the gym, and I have a business coach, and I have a coach for different areas of different things, right? So, but I guess I don't know why more people don't invest in it, to be honest.
I think you kind of touched on it though. Like with sports, you're physically taking that pickleball or tennis lesson. You're like, okay, I did all the reps right now. I can see some progress. Whereas maybe when it comes to business, it's a longer lead time to get to the actual results. And we're so quick to be a quick start and to have shiny object syndrome that when we go, oh, yay, I just started this and I have this coach. Why didn't I make $10,000 this month? Why didn't I grow my business 2x? I think it's also the people, what is it? 5% of us are entrepreneurs at all. And so there probably could just be a lot of people who think it sounds nice and they want the end result of what someone got to.
That's
But
right.
if they actually saw the work that you have to put in to get to that point, to get to the point where people go, "You're lucky, I wish I were you." Like there's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think it's, I follow Alex Ramosi a ton, and he talks about that all the time. He talks about how hard it is, and I think I try to, of course, when you're trying to promote a program or market or whatever, it can't be completely the real estate pessimist, right? You have to have some of the shiny light. But I do tell people like this requires work. Like none of this is easy. And it only it doesn't get easier, just you get better. But a coach and somebody who has paid the tuition, they're going to help you skip that. And you can't read the label from inside the jar, right? So you can't see some of your faults. And one of my coach right now is helping me a ton with my mindset and my confidence to help me get to the next stage because he can see me bigger than I can see myself. That's, I mean,
That's
that's
so
worth
true.
the
How often
investment.
do we look at some other relationship of a friend or partnerships or different things and we're like, oh, I know exactly why you're doing what you're doing. And they can't see it because they're inside. Like you said, you can't see it from the inside. So if we just remember that and we go, okay, one, I'm gonna drop my ego and go, I know I can't be the expert at everything. So I'm going to get a coach for this and put in the work and get someone that's a couple steps ahead of you. Maybe not 20 or 50 steps, but someone a couple steps so it's super relatable and you go, okay, all right, one step at a time, I can do this. I'm with you. I pay for coaches, whether it's group coaching programs or sometimes one-on-one, depending on what it is, because I want to borrow someone else's 10,000 hours. I want to, if I can avoid the mistakes that are going to be the death blows that cost me time, a crazy amount of time or money, I want to avoid those. I know nothing will be perfect. But if I can avoid the death blows, then that is winning in its own, and I'm going to grow along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to be able, I heard somebody say once, they were talking about coaching, like I think it was investing in a coaching program, investing in something where you didn't feel like you got the thing. Like let's say you hire a real estate coach and you finish their program and you didn't get the flip or you didn't get that. But if you had acquired even one skill from that, whether it's like deal analysis or raising capital, right? Like one part of it, is it not worth that investment? Like if you think about that and you take those lessons, because I've paid for coaching in programs that haven't worked for me. And it doesn't mean the program was bad or the coach was bad or the strategy didn't work. It just meant it didn't work for me in that moment. Maybe I picked something that didn't fit with the rest of the things going on in my life. But I can always look back and recognize either it was like, okay, like you're an idiot, you fell for, something shiny, or it was, I didn't have the capacity to do it, but I did learn this thing. And now I'm going to take that thing, I'm going to apply it to something else. And so it goes back to like, you just got to keep moving forward from the lessons.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I'm not sure if it was Dan Martell or who it was who gave this analogy of coaching, how someone would look at it and like, that didn't work for me. And I took that other class or coaching or read that book, whatever it is, whatever the coaching thing is, that didn't work for me. And this assumption that things that are free are somehow better. I'm just not sure about that. But the metaphor he gave is like the coaching and learning is like building links in a chain. And you want to hook where you are up to this future thing. And you take a course or two or whatever it is, and you say, it didn't work because I'm not hooked up to that future that I want, that's good, that I can really take off. He said, now, when you add that last link, the thing that you needed at just that right time, at just that right moment, and you were able to engage it, and now you're hooked up to the future you want, we attribute all of that success to that last link because that's what connected us. He said, but all of those previous links got you close enough that that last one was able to, you were able to make all of that connection, and now you could go. And for me, that made a lot of sense. And so if we're expecting coaching, or I would put this forward, one deal or whatever it is, one person to be the everything. I want to have just one link that's going to take me from where I am to where I want to be. That's just impossible. That just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I think kind of like what Christy was saying too, is finding the person who's just at that next link for you. Like don't find the guy who's who's got 10,000 rental units if you don't have one. Like find the guy who's got 3 or 10 because he's going to relate to you, help you get those next links, and then you can move from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, it
And
all
you can
compounds.
listen to the people who are further ahead and kind of hear that, but the direct mentor in person there, yeah, if they're right there in front of you, that helps a ton. I'm thinking of like Cody Sanchez and that. So where it's like, yeah, if you want to buy a business, she's not personally going to help you do it, but she's created the teams and local people to then help you work through that. Yeah.
So as we head out here, the last little section is kind of where are you? How do people find you? Where have you been? Talk about your career arc. I mean, you were in horses. You thought that was going to be the thing. You're like, no, that's not where I'm going to stay for various reasons. And you built some coaching. You built a flipping company that was flipping a lot. Tell us just a smidge about that. How much was going on? Like we're talking 1 or 2 a year? No, I don't think so. And what you're rebuilding now and why? Because I think that also we get this idea that I'm going to pick one thing and I'm going to keep betting on that same horse the whole time, every time. And you're like, no, I'm going to spread it out a little bit. Tell us a little bit about that journey yourself from where you were, what was going on, and what you want your future to be right now that you're building.
So I've pretty well stayed in the real estate industry since I started. And as I had mentioned earlier, I've always had a flip going, for the last 10 years. So, but there's been some shiny object along the way. And so I was flipping houses, did that, got burned, trying to make my way. I had a friend locally who told me to get my real estate license. Yeah, I'm gonna get my real estate license, which did benefit me as an investor. I went on that, still flipping. Now I have my real estate license, built my rental portfolio. All of those were good things. There's a lot of synergy between what you're doing. Great. So I built them up. After I had I guess right before I had my daughter in 2022, I was flipping. We built our rental portfolio 30 doors in 3 years, 29 doors in 3 years with our burr. So just that's the scale we went to. We wanted to do 30 in 10 years and I went faster. So we always had a few burrs, like probably 4 to 5 projects ongoing at a time between burrs and flips. And then I was building my real estate team of real estate agents. And then I had my daughter and I was tired. Like I went back, my daughter was 6 weeks old. I had a nanny. I went back to work. I worked for myself, so I had some flexibility, but I was tired of being like, I was negotiating a deal while I was like being induced for labor. And I was like, I don't know that this is really what I want to do. So I went back to focus more on flips because it's so highly leveraged. So I did that with time and money, right? I could flip a property with less time involved than I did with negotiating contracts in real estate. And I was still supported. We stabilized our rental portfolio. My husband quit his full-time job and just runs our rentals and scaled that back. So I think at the peak of my flips, we were probably doing probably 4 or 5 projects always ongoing, maybe 6 kind of in that. Had my daughter, scaled it back, started my coaching business. Again, probably a little shiny object. I mean, I love coaching. It's the thing I love doing the most. Even now, it's the thing I love doing the most, but a little bit of shiny object. So each time I did this ping, it decreased my momentum of what I was doing. And so my flips never quite grew. My coaching, and my coaching's fine. I love my program, but it didn't, it's not doing, $1 million a month like some of the coaching gurus will tell you, and even my portfolio. So we've made progress. And it was actually my current coach now, and we talked about it, and I decided to go back to flipping and focus on that because it's the thing I have the most experience in and paid the most tuition in. And I didn't want to be a coach who did something 20 years ago. I didn't want to be like the professor who was teaching about flipping from back when I used to do it, and sort of been focusing on that. And it's hard because I've had to make tough choices to stay focused. So we were able to scale up my team I made that decision this year in January to scale my flips back up. Now we're still doing our family flips. There are a lot of things going on. So I hope you guys are following. This is what happens in my brain all the time. So we still had our family flips going, which Nick, my husband, runs. But from the end of January till now, we've scaled up to we're on pace to to hit six, like buy six new flips a month in one market. And then we're going to continue to scale from there. So that's what I'm
Did you
doing.
just say 6 flips per month?
Yeah, we're doing six acquisitions a month with flips in one market, and we'll go from there. So all of my past beliefs that I had from I have to find a new market, there's not enough inventory, I need to spread out, I need to do all of these different things in order to hit my business goal is, I think that's just one, it's inexperience and it's lack of belief that it's possible, I think. And so my coach is working with me to stay focused. That's like the only thing we work on, staying focused.
That's awesome. Sounds like we need to do a sequel podcast at some point to bring you back and talk about some of these lessons. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. Where can people contact you? Where can they follow you? Where can they find out more about you?
Yep. Instagram is probably the easiest place. At Flip and Empire is my handle on Instagram for my real estate program. We also have a free community on School. I'll give you the link if you can share it there so people can join us on there as well.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for joining us, sharing your story. I have loved being your friend and chatting with you over the years of the wins, the losses, the struggles, hey, I'm growing this business. Oh, you too. Let's share the nuances of maybe best practices on that. So thank you again so much for coming. And to our audience, if you got value out of this, we would greatly appreciate if you could like and subscribe to the podcast. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Review. The more likes and subscribes and reviews that we get, the more we can get this out there and share the good, the bad, and the truth about real estate investing.
Final word. We are not giving you advice. We're not going to take the stand and be deposed and say, well, I bought a flip because of what I heard on a podcast. So if you need financial, legal, marital, or any other kind of professional advice, seek a professional that can truly help you, not just people on the internet. Thanks for joining us.